Hi, and welcome to another episode. I hope your week is going well, and if not, that you're giving yourself the compassion and nurturing that you so deserve. Today, I'm bringing you a great guest episode with someone I've been fortunate enough to work with and also now call a friend. So let me introduce you. What do you get when you cross a therapist with a copywriter? Caitlin Bell. A clinical psychologist turned copywriter, Caitlin helps healthcare professionals turned entrepreneurs translate their expertise into personality-filled words so they attract the right clients and own their creative freedom. With a background in psychology, she brings a deep understanding of human behaviour to copywriting, whipping up messages that make people say, "Finally, I've found my person." She hosts the podcast Healers with Hustles, spotlighting healthcare professionals who've bravely stepped out into creative careers. You'll find an episode I did with Caitlin on there, so after you've listened to this, go and check that one out too. When Caitlin's not writing, she's probably eavesdropping in a cafe, for research obviously, or hanging out with her extremely cute mini schnauzer, Heidi. It's my absolute pleasure to welcome Caitlin to Welcome to Self. Hey, Caitlin, thanks so much for coming on.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It's such a treat. We've talked about this for a little while, and I'm so excited we've done it. We've made it happen.
Fantastic. Lovely. So maybe start with telling the audience a little bit about, you've been a psychologist and now you've become a copywriter. How did you get to that place?
Yeah, it's a good it's a good question. I'm now a clinical psychologist, which is cool to be able to say that. I almost didn't get there, which maybe we can touch on as well. But I found that, like probably a lot of health, psychologists that you've had on the podcast, being a psychologist can be very like quite heavy at times. And I was finding myself I don't know, getting a little bit like teetering towards the edge of burnout, like constantly. And there was just a little part of me that was always wanting to do something creative. And at the time, I was working in palliative care as a psychologist, and I obviously sit with people at the end of their lives, which was such an honorable job. And like the common thread that I constantly hear between people was, like that they've lived a full life and they've done everything they wanted to do and like they wouldn't die wondering. And it kind of, I think, planted a seed for me to go, well, what do I really want in life? What do I want?
Yeah.
Is psychology something I want? Like I do love being a therapist and a psychologist, but it's a lot, particularly to do it full time. And so then I discovered what copywriting was, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is it. It's so fun. Like I can be myself. I can have fun while I work, and there's no real restrictions, which is very cool.
That's so cool. And my gosh, yeah. I mean, obviously I'm a former clinical psychologist myself, and it can be very heavy work. And, working in palliative care, I mean, end of life, that is obviously going to be something that has really heavy moments. But I love also that you kind of took the learnings from people in that to reflect and ask yourself, well, hang on, what am I going to be saying to myself at the end of life? We want to look back, don't we? I mean, I check in a lot with my 80-year-old self pretty much on a daily basis to sort of think, what would she want me to be doing? So that when I get to the end of my life, which hopefully will be much past 80, but we don't know, do we? That I can look back and think, yeah, I did the things. So I love that you didn't just kind of do the work, but you took the work you were doing and used it to help you reflect on yourself as well. And then you found copywriting.
Yes, that's it. No, I love how you put that. And I think it's only like looking back that I realized like, oh my gosh, that was such an important moment. And it kind of just naturally occurred. But yeah, absolutely. It was something that I think I've always been interested in, like, existentialism and meaning and all of that. And so it just was a natural thing. But now, yeah, copywriting, which is totally different from psychology. Like, right, we've got it's like part of copywriting. It's so important to, like know people and beliefs and desires and all of that. So I think it's a really nice background. to be a writer
Absolutely.
and
I
a
think that
copywriter.
would be such a great fit because to write good copy, you need to understand people and human behavior and all that. And obviously, as a psychologist, then you've got that background. But I'm curious. I mean, I was running two different businesses until I decided to let go of my psychology registration. How do you find running those? And yours are far more different to me. I was doing psychology and supervision, but then also coaching. I think what you're doing is perhaps even more different to the things that I was doing. I'm curious to how do you kind of manage that? How do they fit together, or do you keep things very separate, like compartmentalize things a lot? How do you do that?
Yeah, it's a really like it's such a I think I'm still kind of figuring it out for sure, but I'm a lot better than I was in terms of like making it all make sense to me. Like particularly last year, at the start of last year, I was in quite a moment of like adjustment and transition, and it was caused me a lot of stress about like how can I be two at once? Like how can I
Yeah,
be like a psychologist and a copywriter? Like how can I be doing this? And it came down to a lot of my own like beliefs, I think, about the
yeah,
industry, about like what I was allowed to do, like my views of like authority, and then I like internalized that. And I think once I worked that out, I was able to sit a lot better with the two. But yeah, like you said, I've now they're both very different, both on totally different days of
yeah,
the week. You know, like I have obviously like different Instagrams and all of that, but I
yeah,
I think that's how I manage it is by keeping them really separate.
yeah,
Which I don't know, it'd be nice if they were to be able to have them like together as one, but
yeah.
I think it's just for my own I don't know, yeah, having it separate is just where it's sitting at the moment.
Yeah, and I think as a registered psychologist, you do have the regulations around you
Yeah.
from ARPA, the governing body, that don't perhaps allow you to completely combine them.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah,
And that's a big part of it too, isn't it? So I think that's also probably a way for me to be able to, yeah, have the boundaries and
yeah,
all of that, and probably also to be able to sit with the ethics of it more
yeah,
as well, to be able to do that, which is, yeah, of course it's so important, but it's also super restrictive, right? And
yeah.
as you you know all about.
Yeah, yeah, and you have such a wonderful personality, just as a human being. Full stop. You
Oh,
have such a wonderful personality in your copywriting. Like some of your content is hilarious. I mean, whether people need a copywriter or not, I think they should go and follow you anyway at Bell Copy Co. And I will put everything in the show notes as well for both your businesses. But you just bring a lightness and joy, I think, to the Instagram feed, which is lovely, or wherever anybody is kind of following on social media. And then you have quite a different personality, but you still shine through, I think, on your psychology stuff as well. How do you kind of navigate that? And which would be more true to you, do you think?
yeah, that's such a good question. I love that. And that's like what definitely a value of mine that I really hold dear is fun. Like
Yeah,
I got into the copywriting business because I wanted more fun. I believe business should be fun. And I think
yeah,
that's the ultimate goal that I want to have with like for my clients is to have like a business that feels fun and light and joyful and that
yeah,
they love doing.
yeah,
And I think, and particularly with, yeah, it's interesting that you say like my copywriting one is probably I don't know if both of them. I think maybe the copywriting one is like how my personality, but maybe like I always say it's like my personality if maybe I didn't have social anxiety. So it's like this that I'm a bit more
completely
disinhibited. I'm
unmasked
a bit
and
more
out there.
exactly a bit more extroverted, like in terms of like energy. Whereas my psychology one is how it's still my personality and how I am, but maybe like a little bit more muted. So I think my
Yeah,
true self, how I am, is probably somewhere in between.
in between. Yeah,
Yeah,
the Caitlin that I see at the coffee shop.
that's it. Yeah, that's it. But when it comes down to it, it's a brand voice thing, and that's like a deliberate choice that I do. And
Yeah,
sometimes when I'm writing the content, I'm particularly with the psychology one, I'll start writing like the bell cop, like for bell copy, and I'm like, oh, I've got to reel that in a little bit.
yeah,
It's a bit
yeah.
too maybe playful.
So perhaps mentioning that, I just want to touch on though the business being fun, and I totally am with you on that.
Yes.
I really
Yeah.
think, when we're going into business for ourselves, why would we want to set it up in a way that we don't enjoy it? And I think if we can bring some fun and lightness to it, and that doesn't mean we get to have fun all the time. I mean, I think in any job, in any business, there's stuff that you don't want to do. There's stuff you find boring. That's just part of life, right? But if we can start to inject fun and creativity and the things we enjoy into our business, then I do believe that helps prevent burnout, and it gives us that kind of longevity and sustainability of our business. So I'm really glad that you spoke about that. But let's just talk about copywriting for a little bit. And you mentioned brand voice. So could you just explain a little bit for people who might not understand what that means? What is brand voice, and why is having good copy really helpful for a business?
Yes. So brand voice is the way we communicate our personality. So brand voice and personality are totally different things. So a business, for example, could have the same personality. So maybe you're, like you said, like a friend at the cafe, but being friendly might sound different for different people. Like, so your version of friendly is different from my version of friendly, and that's a brand voice thing. And so really brand voice is broken down into three things. So it's like the words we use, the tone of our voice, and then the cadence of our writing. So that's like if we use really long flowy sentences, if we use really short, sharp sentences, or maybe we use a mix of each. But yeah, it's really how we convey that personality, which is super important for online, right? Like if we all sounded the same, well, it's really difficult to be able to choose who we want to work with. Like, particularly like, business coaches, right? There's so many business coaches out there. And at the end of the day, a lot of the messaging is the same, like helping you, make more money, maybe have more time, all of these things. But brand voice is a way that we can stand out and sound different. And so that's why copywriting is super important as well. So we can attract the people that we really, really want to work with, and more importantly, like repel the people we don't want to work with as well. That's an also really important thing. So someone wants to read your website or any copy that you've got, and they're like, "Oh, I don't like this. I don't want to work with you." That's actually a really good thing.
Absolutely. So it really is that, isn't it? It's like, who do we want to attract? Who don't we want to attract? But also, if somebody comes across and reads something, we really want them to be able to say, "Oh, that's Caitlin from Bell Copy," or "Oh, that's Dr. Hayley from Welcome to Self."
Yes.
Yeah. So we become recognizable in the words that we're using.
That's exactly it. And so a lot of the time it's a test that you can do is by like, if, someone was to go to your website or even your Instagram and they were able to like covered up your logo and your brand colors and all of that, would people be able to tell if it's you, or do you sound exactly like everyone else? And if you sound like other people, then that's a brand voice. It's a brand voice thing, which is, it's easy to tweak. It's once you know how to do it. But you're absolutely right. We want to stand out, and we want people to we want people to recognize us.
Yeah. So what do you find are the biggest things that people perhaps struggle with that you help people with? I mean, you did a fantastic job on my website, so people can check out your work there, and I'm sure there's lots of other places. But what tend to be the things that people struggle with?
So particularly for business own, because I work with a lot of healthcare professionals who are maybe like yourself, transitioning into something a little bit more different, and we're used to writing in a really clinical way, right? Like when we write our clinical notes, it's, we often write for someone else. Like we're not writing our notes for us, we're writing them for like our healthcare, other professionals or colleagues or something like that. So we use a lot of jargon and we use a lot of shorthand and a lot of things that hide our personality. We don't want to use our personality in there, and that's becomes a problem when then healthcare professionals go and write for marketing, because they'll write in that way and they'll be writing for other colleagues when we want to be writing for our audience and we want to be sounding like us. So that's probably like the biggest thing that people struggle with that I see. And then also, what else would it be? Knowing like what to say as well. Like sometimes they might write, even if they are okay with writing and maybe they feel they're confident in writing how they want to speak. It's like, well, what do I want to say? And so they'll say a huge amount, but really good copywriting is saying things in the shortest way possible.
Yeah. So you're saying a lot with a few words.
Yes, exactly. That's it. Exactly. There's a quote, and I can't remember who it's by. I think it might be like, I don't know, Mark Twain. I feel like Mark Twain always gets, like quoted with all these things, but maybe not necessarily. But it's like, I didn't have time to write a short letter, so I wrote a long one instead. And that's like really encapsulates copywriting. Like, you want to be able to write something in a really short way because people have short attention spans as well.
Yeah. And, and a lot of, particularly if your audience is people in business or pretty much any humans these days, people are so busy. Like we've just got caught up in being so busy, haven't we? And I think sometimes we're busy being busy, and it's not necessarily helpful busyness. I know I will reflect sometimes and think, do you know, I've had a busy week, but it's just been a busy week. So I like to look and kind of refine, well, what am I actually doing that I don't need to be doing? I always come and think about, in the days, oh gosh, I haven't applied for a job in a long, long time, but I've worked for myself for a long time. But, when you have to write a resume, and it's almost easier to get somebody else to write your resume for you. Well, that was me with my website, I think. It's like, I know what I do and I know who I am and I know what I want to say. But as I start to say it, I'm like, I think somebody else would do a better job for me if they spoke to me and understood what I do. So that's where I found it really helpful working with you, in terms of you just have a different perspective. And when it's not you're writing about, you don't get so caught up in, is that the right thing? Or does that sound really like me? Is that really what I do? So I think it can be really helpful to have somebody else to help you with this stuff.
Oh, that's good. I'm glad that you found that, because you're right. It's like a little bit like trying to read the label from inside the jar. Like you can, but it's sometimes a little bit. It's easier to have someone on the outside to be able to do it for you. But I love what you say about reflecting on the week and finding things that you're being busy doing and not, maybe not necessarily needing to do. It makes me think about is there anything that you find yourself like repeatedly doing that?
Gosh, that is a good question. Too much time in my email, and not even work stuff, just so much junk that comes through, right? I've got into a really good habit now of when I do check my email every day, I make sure I'm unsubscribing from stuff. That's not to encourage anyone to unsubscribe from the podcast emails, but unless, of course, they are becoming too much and it's overwhelming. And then I say, you know what, now's not the time. Unsubscribe from me as well, but hopefully not.
Hopefully not, exactly. Hopefully not.
Yeah, but stuff that comes that's just not helpful. And I think, certainly me as a neurodivergent woman, my ADHD, I can subscribe to things sometimes where really I'll subscribe to that and I'll check it later. And then I start getting emails and I'm thinking, who is that even from? I don't even remember signing up to that. So I can get caught up in that. What else? I think sometimes I can feel very focused. And if I'm in a good hyper focus, then I get some really productive work done. If I'm not, and I am feeling a little bit more uncertain, which certainly in my transition, when I stepped away from psychology, I had lots of days where I was really quite uncertain about, okay, well, if I'm not doing that, how do I really want to kind of build my business moving forward? And I would find myself making lots of lists. I am a list builder. Like, I love a list. So I'd find myself doing that a lot. But I don't know. Sometimes I think, this is ridiculous. What even is this list for? So I can get caught up in stuff. And then I think I can get caught in that loop a little bit sometimes. So for me, it really is a process of regular check-ins with myself throughout the day. How am I going? What do I need? What am I doing? Do I need to be doing it? So I don't know there's particularly specific things. It would depend what it is. I can go down a Canva rabbit hole. I do love Canva.
It's so good, isn't it?
I have a wonderful VA who does a lot of my stuff in Canva, but I jump in sometimes and then I'm like, ooh, and then I want to make pretty things. So,
Yeah.
but as I do that, I think when you were saying you want to be creative, so I start to think about that of like, okay, well, and maybe that's fine. Maybe I can just be in Canva creating stuff in Canva, but maybe there's an element for me of, is there something I'd like to do in terms of maybe go to an art class or go and do pottery or,
Yeah.
find something that is a creative outlet that I could do that's not work related. Like I'm writing a book at the moment, and obviously that is a creative pursuit, but
Yes.
it's also linked
Definitely.
in with my work. So thinking about perhaps if you are getting caught in particular things,
Mm.
is it necessary for your business? And if not, is it kind of indicating to you that perhaps there's something you want to be doing in your life?
Yeah, that's such a good point that it's like there's something like a deeper wish or a
Yeah.
desire that yourself wants and that it's trying to like it's trying to come out and trying to do it,
Yeah.
but and it's a good thing to listen to that. Have you
Yeah.
ever done pottery? Is that something you've done before?
I have done hand pottery. I've never done on a wheel,
Mm.
pottery wheel. I have done it by hand, and I really enjoyed that. It was fun.
It's so fun, isn't it?
Yeah.
But yeah, wheel one would be fun too. I feel like I just like get it everywhere or something, but it'd be a
Yeah.
lot of fun doing it.
So what do you do to kind of take care of yourself? Because obviously you have that creative aspect of your copywriting, but it is work
Mm.
related. And I think sometimes when we do make it work related, it does
Yeah,
change the dynamic of it, doesn't it? So what
it
sort of
does.
things do you do outside of psychology? And obviously
Mm.
that's an area I spent a lot of time in my career focusing on self-care for therapists. That's how the podcast first started. So I'm absolutely an advocate for therapists taking care of themselves, but also as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, somebody who's running two different businesses,
Yeah.
and just as a human being, we need to take care of ourselves. So how do you navigate all that? What do you do?
Yeah, well, it's making me think like I spend it when I'm not working in terms of like not writing or not doing my psychology stuff, something that's totally separate. It'd be probably doing things outside, like go for a lot of walks because I do have Heidi, like my little
Yeah.
dog, and she's very energetic and needs to get rid of her energy. So we go for a lot of walks. I love probably also social things. Like one of my favorite things is like going out for lunch with a friend and just, like chatting for hours, which I know is not necessarily a hobby. Well, my husband constantly tells me, he's like, you need a hobby and so it's something, a hobby is something that you get better at. I'm like, okay, I could get better at, like, I
You
don't
get
know.
better at, picking quickly from the menu and
Yeah,
having,
exactly.
conversations that are more
Exactly. It's so
meaningful or something. I don't know. I would never say don't. No, I think absolutely going for lunch with friends can be a
yeah.
hobby. Absolutely.
I love that. Thank you for justifying that. But also I haven't done it for a long time, but I used to do a lot of crafts, like cross stitching and like even knitting. I got into a few years once, like where I would do hand knitting, and like rather than using like the needles, you use your hands and your arms.
Oh,
So that
wow.
was pretty cool. Like you make obviously really chunky
Yeah.
things, but that was a thing I used to do for quite a while. Mm. So definitely like that creative side
Yeah.
comes
So,
out.
so that connection and being out in nature. And I wonder, do you find that quite inspiring for your work as well?
Yeah, so true. Exactly. Like get that space. I find that when I'm really struggling with work and writing and like I just can't seem to get any inspiration, I find anytime I go out for a walk, it's like immediate, like the ideas will just come. And I think it's because you're in that, I don't know what it is, like if it's your mind, you're not like particularly thinking about
Yeah.
something, but like in the background, your mind's definitely like mulling over things. And
Yeah.
I find that just so beneficial. And maybe you're also not having your phone with you. Like I
Yeah.
think that's also really beneficial too. So when I go for a walk, I try not to have my phone with
Yeah.
me, which is
Yeah.
a blessing and a curse. Sometimes if I have really good ideas and I can't write it down.
Yeah, I do take my phone when I go for a walk because I voice note myself a lot with ideas. But I also,
That's a
because I
good
live near the
idea.
beach and I often will want to take a photograph of something.
Mm.
But I do have a bit of a rule for myself that it goes back in I carry like a little bag. It goes back in the bag once the voice note's been done and once the photograph's been taken, it goes back in the bag and I don't go scrolling or anything like that, or
Mm.
answering calls or anything when I'm out
Yeah,
doing that.
it's a good. You must be very self-disciplined, I feel.
No, I don't think so.
No?
Well, no, not in a general, not in a general sense. Maybe with some things, but I think
So
all of
yeah.
us, right? There's some things that we can kind of stick to, and other things, no, absolutely not. But that for me, I think because I really value that time.
Yes.
For me, even though I have quite a lot of time by myself, that time out in nature and what it brings up for me is really valued. So I
Mm.
don't want to be on the phone or answering messages or looking on social media or anything. So that's probably where that comes from. But other times,
Yes.
no, I can be totally not. And, you just accept yourself for who you are, right? And put things in
Yes.
place. I'm in a number of
That's
sort of accountability groups with colleagues, and I set alarms for myself all the time because I need to. So I think, a lot of the premise of my work is that we need to really get to know and understand ourselves
mm.
so that we can set things in place for our life that allows us to do the things that are important and put down the things that are not important. So
Which
yeah.
I think is one of your gifts or your strengths that you really, particularly as a business coach, right? Because I've worked with in the past, I worked with a business coach for a little while, and it was very much like you must do this, you have to set up your work day up like this. It was very much like regimented.
Yeah.
And then so I think that's definitely one of your strengths is that it's about the person and what
Yeah,
works for
because
you, which seems like that should be like just a given way to work with people. And maybe that's because that's the psychology background, clinical psychology background coming through, that's like such a fundamental part of
yeah.
how, to
I
work.
think I think, I was a psychologist for nearly 18 years. I'm late identified autistic ADHD, so I now understand that I'm neurodivergent. And that I've often had to do things differently in life. And I
Mm,
just don't understand that you need to do it like this because that's obviously not going to work for everybody. And I think what can happen then is people can feel a lot of shame and can feel
yeah,
quite
huge.
defective about, well,
Yeah.
this person said I need to get up at 5 o'clock and meditate and then journal 3 pages
Yeah.
and then, do this XYZ like this. And it doesn't work and I'm not doing it or I can't commit to it
Mm,
or I'm not getting the results that they're saying I should. And then it becomes this self-blame. And I just think that's so
yeah.
wrong. We need to understand who we are, how we work, how we want to work. And like you say, bring
Mm,
some creativity and fun. If something feels fun, we're far more likely to be motivated to do it
do
than
it.
like, oh, I've got to
Yes.
sit here because somebody told me that I have to do it this way. I mean, that's just awful.
Particularly like the waking up at 4 a.m. thing. Like
Yeah, I won't
that
be doing
doesn't sound fun.
that. I won't be doing
Maybe
that.
for some people it is, like if they're I don't know, but for me,
Yeah.
no.
And if that is for you, if you are I want to wake up at 4 and get my day started, then fantastic.
Mm.
But it's not for me. I mean, I was getting up prior to we had the recent cyclone here in Queensland. Prior to that, I was getting up about 6, 6:15, and getting up and going out walking and going for a swim and everything. But like with many things, that gets disrupted, and I've not been getting up earlier and doing that. So
Yeah.
I need to get back into kind of getting up and starting my day because I was really enjoying that. But I find it quite easy. I don't know about you, that I get into a routine, but if it gets disrupted,
Yeah,
you
for
know,
sure.
and then I don't get back into it, and I have to kind of be like, oh, hang on a minute, I was really enjoying that, get back into it. So I think
Yeah.
accepting our humanness as well.
Yes, that's so we've got exactly, and that's not like you said before. It's not a like sense of defectiveness or anything like that. It's just we're human, and
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it just reminded me because when I was in Korea recently, I was going to the gym like every day, and I'm not a gym
Wow.
person at all. And I got into that, and I found it enjoyable because I felt really good afterwards. It was like just a cool thing that I went and like I listened to my audiobooks, and I for the first time ever I really enjoyed it. But then as soon as I came back to Australia, it's like, nope, I'm out of that routine. Mm, but I can get back into it.
Yeah. Yeah. So just going back to copywriting, if somebody was sort of looking perhaps at their website or their social media, if they don't have a website, what would be some things that you'd say, just kind of have a look at this or this and see what it's looking like or how it's feeling, and what might be some small tweaks or things people could do for themselves if they're not in a position to get a copywriter at this stage?
Yeah. Particularly with so if we say like people struggle with social media, um I find like for say if we talk about Instagram, maybe that's not a good example. I think something that's really easy to do, particularly if we get into a bit of a funk about, I don't know, like if this is what I should be saying, is to actually read your copy out loud. So if it's your website, even if it's a social media, I think this goes across anything. If you're reading it and like you're stumbling over your words, there's something not right there. And so that's a really good indication for you to change what you're saying. And oftentimes it's because you're writing um, like in a way that's really complex or formal language or something that you wouldn't ever say yourself. And so that's why it can be really important. I love, like what you said before, is like doing voice notes. So some
Yeah.
people, they really struggle writing, but they're fine with talking. So that's great.
Yeah.
Voice note, like record that, then transcribe that, what you've said, and then just edit it. And that can be a really easy way
Yeah.
to get your thoughts out of your head and onto the page. Another thing is that, which is really, I guess, fundamental copywriting, is to focus on like benefits when you're writing. So a lot of time people will list like features, like what's included in something or the specifics, but we really want to focus on like the outcome or like the
Yeah.
transformation. And so like what does it actually do for the person? So when you're writing anything, just ask yourself like, so what? Like, why is this important?
Yeah.
And then you'll come up with whatever you come up with. But that's probably an easy thing. What else would be a good one? Particularly if you're finding that your writing's a bit formal, use contractions. That's probably the biggest tip that I give people, is instead of saying like you are, like your, or
Yeah.
do not, like don't. That's a really easy way to loosen up writing.
Yeah, just to make it feel a little bit more approachable. I love that about
Yeah,
the read it out
exactly.
loud when you've typed something out. And you were
Mm,
saying, my understanding, we don't always know who's listening to podcasts, but my understanding is there is a number of healthcare professionals who do tune in. And I think you're right in terms of the training. And I guess other people, if they've got backgrounds in other more formal fields, and they've shifted into something else, you can get caught in that really quite dry, quite boring way of writing.
yeah,
So I
yeah.
think, like you say, if you're kind of reading it out loud and think, well, does this sound like me? Is a
Yeah,
really good
exactly.
tip. Yeah.
Yeah, would I say this to someone? Or
Yeah.
even imagining, um, and like a lot of people will say this, but even like writing up the top of your page, like hi, like I'd be like, oh, hi, Hayley. And then I'll just write. Whereas if I was talking to you, like I wouldn't talk like a clinical psychologist. I'd talk
Yeah.
like a friend because you're my friend. And I think
Yeah.
even just that is a good way to shift into a different space
Yeah.
as well if you're really struggling, if
Yeah. I
listeners are
love that.
struggling with writing.
And then if people were thinking, oh, I mean, those are great tips, Caitlin, but gee, I'm not going to be doing that. I don't want to write all the copy for my website, or I don't want to write the copy for whatever. What are some of the things that you can help people with? Like, what are some of the
Mm.
services that you offer to people?
Yeah, so I do what I help you with, which was website copywriting, so SEO, so search engine optimized website copywriting. So that's probably my main service that I help people with. So when they're like either rebranding, relaunching their website, or maybe they're just changing, transitioning or changing businesses, or even if they're just wanting to have a refresh.
Yeah.
Maybe they've had their website for ages and like this doesn't necessarily suit where I am at the moment. So I help a lot of people there. And also with messaging, and so brand voice and messaging, that's also something that I really help people with is I run a workshop, so like an online a one-on-one workshop where I help people with their brand voice to like really identify what that is. And then I can also create guides for people as well.
Yeah.
So they're probably my main services at the moment. Although I'm thinking about offering a service where I help psychology group practices with writing bios for their website because I'm doing something like that at the moment. And it's really, of course, your bio is something that's so important. I think particularly for healthcare professionals, we want to show our personality in a way that like our clients who we work best with will want to work with us as well.
Yeah.
And so that's something that's in the making at the moment.
I think that's fantastic. I know you and I have chatted a little bit about that. I think that's a wonderful service you could offer. And particularly for people who are registered as health professionals, you'd be the ideal person because you can do the fun, kind of edgy brand voice bio whilst also holding in mind that there are certain things that you can and can't do as a health professional. So I think you'd be a great choice for something like that.
That's exactly. Fantastic. And that's something that also, like, I talk a lot about personality and all of this, but I also recognize that as healthcare professionals, we exist in a space where we can't necessarily just, do whatever. And so it's really important to write in a way or work with, my clients in a way that they feel comfortable with what I've written as well.
Yeah.
Because I want people to love what they've written and want it to feel good as well.
Yeah. So my mind's going to, and you're also a psychologist. And then I'm like, oh, how much are we allowed to talk about that because of APRA? But I mean, you are a psychologist. So, what sort of services do you offer there? Let's touch on that briefly because, people listening in may know somebody that has a need for that or need somebody themselves. But so what sort of stuff do you do, like telehealth or in person where you are, or?
Yeah, so telehealth at the moment. So I'm a clinical psychologist and psychodynamic therapist. So I work at the moment telehealth. So I work with a lot of women, millennial women who are kind of in a phase of their life where they're maybe rethinking their relationships and what they understand to be their relationships, and they're in a position where they need to find their identity. That's what I do one-on-one at the moment, and potentially doing face-to-face later in the year. To be continued, though.
And I'll put all your details in the show notes, like I said earlier as well. So what do you enjoy most about doing both roles?
What do I enjoy most about doing both roles? I think the diversity, like just I know it sounds so cliche. It's like no week is ever the same, but really it's just, I don't think I've ever had a week where I'm like, oh, this just feels like it's a bit of a drag. I don't think any week has been a drag since I've done both of them. It's like there's always something going on. There's something different happening, and also the freedom that I have now as well. It's really cool to be able to go overseas and work and travel. I think my 16-year-old self would be like so excited if I was to tell her that I was doing that. That's
fantastic. So you've really created a business life for yourself that incorporates these two very different businesses that also gives you the freedom to do that from wherever you want to be. I love that. I love that so much. And you talked about your 16-year-old self being kind of like, yeah, go Caitlin. A question I always ask all my guests is, if you could meet your 80-year-old self today, what do you think she would say to you?
What would she say? That's a good question. I think she would say that she was proud of me to maybe make some like risky choices and do things, totally differently, and differently from a sense of like, like a family culture, doing things that are different, and really becoming, I feel like I'm in a place now where I'm like really becoming my true self. I know it sounds a bit cheesy, but like really that like an individual.
Yeah.
And I feel like my 80-year-old self would be really proud.
Yeah. I think she would too. Yeah. Oh, Caitlin, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. Can you just let people know where are the best places to find you?
Yeah, of course. So I hang out a lot on Instagram. That's probably my main hangout. So I'm at Bell Copy Co for my my copywriting Instagram. I'm also at CB Psychologist for my psychology Instagram. And you can always go to my website as well for my copywriting, which is bellcopyco.com, or Caitlin Bell Psychologist as well.
And that's .com or .com?
Yes, .com. Yes, all .com.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you so much, Caitlin. I look forward to catching up with you again soon.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It's been really fun.